Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran and it's time for us to get some alts up and running. The seasonal stuff for this expansion have been kicking off, and this first week of Mythic has been a very exciting one. And by now a lot of you guys are trying to decide which character do you want to play next. Do you want to get some alt that you used to play way back in the day, revive them to see how that gameplay feels, or maybe one of your alts you used to play in previous expansion, or maybe you're trying out a flavor of the month, something that looks super cool and exciting with some awesome legendaries that everybody right now is playing. Now your main has gone through a lot of hurdles, gearing, acquiring the legendaries, as well as the conduits and everything else in between has been a pretty big journey so far. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, if I were to get a character up and running as an alt, how much catch up would I need to do? I decided to actually do a lot of research on the catch up so far and make you guys this video on all the different catch ups available for any of your alts right now in Shadowlands. The two alts that I've been able to play with so far are my Enhancement Shaman as well as a Death Knight. Both of them are in different covenants, and one of them is Bastion, the other is Maldraxxus, so it's a perfect opportunity for me and many of you to check out those storylines of the different covenants to see what you get to do if you were to have picked that covenant on your main. But also, now comes the journey of having to get your characters, your alts, back up and running to get them to a playable condition. So just how much do you have to slog through? The first catch-up mechanic we'll talk about is the Renown, which is kind of like the backbone of every character's progression in an expansion. Every character has different paths of progression when it comes to gear. Gear you can get from PvP, dungeons, or raids. But then we have the main progression, which I would consider main, and that's the Renown grind. Being able to get your character up and running with a variety of different rewards, like new soul binds, and being able to work your way down those soulbind trees, thus unlocking more conduit slots for you to put in your character, allowing you to augment the strength of your character in a variety of ways, major and minor. Renown also gives you better rewards from world quests. It also gives you better PvP rewards if you decide to go by that route through casual PvP. So Renown is quite a big portion of the game, and Blizzard, if one thing they want you to do once a week on your character is to cap your Renown, and that's a very core thing to every character. Your Renown progression is extremely important in this expansion. With two alts ready to farm the Renown, it's a perfect opportunity for me to try a variety of different methods. So far, it seems like the most reliable ways to get Renown are going to be either through doing your callings, doing Mythic Pluses, or raiding. There's potential for PvP to also give you Renown, but I've done a couple 2v2s, and at least on my Shaman, I couldn't get any Renown even though I was severely behind, compared to callings, which were rewarding me Renown just for completing the calling, and those were really easy to do. And a guildie of mine was able to get Renown from doing bosses inside of a raid, which also was really easy since we were doing a full normal clear. They were able to catch up with enough Renown from the catch-up methods very easily. So the further behind you are with Renown, the more activities are going to reward you Renown. And I think if you're so behind, eventually even simple world quests could potentially reward you extra catch-up on Renown just to make sure your character is caught up. Right now we're only at Renown rank 12, and next week is probably going to shift to rank 15, but imagine a couple weeks and even a month away after this expansion where you gotta catch up to Renown 30, just about every activity should start rewarding you Renown. And I guess we don't have all the different activities documented just yet, but there's so much stuff you can do right now in the game in order to catch up. Another catch-up mechanism exists primarily for PvPers. If you're someone who's been playing your characters for a while and now it's time for you to get some alts up and running, you want to cap your 2s, enemy and 3s, maybe even dive into RBGs on something like a Boomkin, where a rogue would feel a lot different in RBGs, where a Boomkin could just spread dots and nuke people from afar. I mean, all that sounds fun, but also now comes the Conquest catch-up. You gotta catch up to your mains and everybody else in Conquest. And Blizzard added a Conquest catch-up mechanism into this expansion pretty early on. So every week when you PvP, you have to cap about 550 Conquest. But what do you do if you are behind? Well, what Blizzard is going to do, and what they already do right now for every single character, is every single week you have to reach 550 Conquest in a variety of different ways. You could do BGs, you can do RBGs, you can do skirmishes, you can do real 2s and 3s arenas. There's a variety of different ways for you to go about it. And what they will do next week is they'll simply just expand the amount of conquest you need in order to cap your conquest. So they'll add on 550 conquest towards whatever amount of conquest you already had. So basically they're just going to simply increase the amount of cap of conquest every character has every single week. It's very similar to the Renown cap, every week in Renown, Blizzard has a cap up to a maximum amount of Renown you can go to. And if you're someone who's behind, you can catch up to them very, very easily. But if you're someone who is following your Renown progression day to day, week to week, you'll only be able to reach your cap, and that's all you can do for the time being. This is perfect for someone who wants to PvP, as PvP has been kind of big this expansion so far, and it's actually been enjoyable by a lot of players. The reintroduction of vendors and versatility becoming like the non-official PvP stat, I think made it a little bit easier for people to really get into PvP, because now you know exactly what kind of gear and what kind of stats you need for PvP. And you have a very specific, very straightforward, very guaranteed, very little to RNG of a method of getting yourself gear primarily for PvP. So it's really good to see that Blizzard is giving PvP crowd with the Conquest catch-up starting early a lot more love, especially at the beginning of this expansion. After expansion like a BFA, where you had to PvP, you needed to do Mythic Pluses and raids if you really wanted to be competitive inside of arenas. So I'm very glad about this change, but that's another method of catch-up. And finally, we have Soul Ash, and all the research that I've done, and I know a lot of you guys will be asking if Soul Ash is part of the catch-up mechanism. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't seem that Blizzard have added any kind of catch-up, at least not yet, towards Soul Ash. Legendaries are going to be a good portion of our character performance and gameplay. They are a lot better than they were in Legion in terms of acquiring those legendary effects. The only ones that are kind of RNG are going to be the ones from dungeon bosses. But if you do those dungeons on Mythic 0 or Mythic Plus level, they're basically a guaranteed drop. In raids, as well as with world bosses and with certain activities like PvP where you can just buy certain legendaries, there's a variety of different Legos that are pretty easy to acquire. But now comes the moment of crafting those legendaries and diving into the Tower of Torghast, where you have to scale up a variety of different layers and floors and through different hallways with a variety of different enemies, and try to embark against powerful foes and bosses at the end of every run in order to gain Soul Ash. Blizzard did make Torghast a lot easier, so maybe that's like their catch-up mechanism for it, to make Torghast runs much easier. For example, the layer 8 used to be on its own difficulty, but now layer 8 has a scaling of layer 6 instead. Layer 6 being a moderately challenging layer for a lot of players, and layer 8 being like the mythic version of a layer for Torghast. So they kind of shrunk the level of the highest down, and every other layer under that layer, under level 8, also subsequently got shrunk down as well. But right now there is no way for you to catch up your character. You can just go into a bunch of halls of Torghast and catch up all your Soul Ash in order to craft a tier 2 or even a tier 3 legendary that your mains might actually have right now and they can currently wear. So that is going to be something that maybe Blizzard will consider putting in the future. I know this isn't exactly a direct catch-up, but I know that a question was going to come up anyway. So I wanted to give you guys as much relevant information, but from my research so far, it does not seem that there's an actual way to catch up with Soul Ash for your characters as of this moment. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Renown and Conquest are pretty major for your characters, so utilize Renown Conquest as best as you can. And good luck getting your legendaries and the Soul Ash quite quickly. I've heard that players are even complaining that Torghast might even be too easy now, so maybe that grind through Torghast, that slog, should be a little bit better, but I'm actually very surprised Blizzard didn't add a catch-up for this one, since just about everything else has a catch-up. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have fun leveling your alts and getting them caught up to your mains. They are actually so fun to play, and the worst part of it, which I think is Renown slog, much easier than I expected it to be. Thank you all, and I'll see all of you in the next one.